young and old, all united, and they say they will not stop their protests until the Rajapaksa family leave power.
Well, we're joined now from Colombo by human rights lawyer Bhavani Fonseka. And we're just hearing from Rajini there about how bad things are for people in Sri Lanka. But can you just explain to us why they've got so bad and why it's led to so many people taking to the streets?
Is in a deep crisis, and it's got worse over the last few months. This is directly linked to the economic situation where we're unable to, the government is unable to purchase essential items, and there is basically long queues on the road to buy medicine, fuel, gas, and it's also resulted in violence and several deaths as well in the last few weeks. But what your reporter indicated yesterday was unprecedented, where many came out in protest. These are peaceful protests. So one needs to recognize that ordinary citizens are facing severe hardships in different directions, but they're coming to the streets because they want to be heard. And the situation is extremely dire at the moment on the ground.
And in terms of the president, Rajapaksa himself, his entire cabinet resigned last week, didn't it? And 40 politicians defected. And yet he's refusing to go anywhere, isn't he?
Yes, and that is the political crisis. So Sri Lanka is facing both a political crisis as well as an economic crisis. Last Sunday, the cabinet of ministers resigned. Several members of parliament subsequently said they are going to sit independently in parliament. So the question is whether the president and the prime minister has a majority in parliament. And in that, we also have the opposition raising questions in terms of whether the government is in control. There is a no confidence motion that's picking up. There are calls for the abolishing of the executive presidency. So you see a lot of movement in the last few weeks as well at the political level. But end of the day, many are coming out to the streets with one call, that this government, the president needs to go home. They need to resign. So that is going to remain regardless of what happens at the political level.
And as you said, so far the protests have been largely peaceful. Are you worried that things may escalate?
So the protests have been largely peaceful, and we've been in the streets for the last few weeks. And it's amazing to see how many have come out united in their calls for change. There have been a few instances where there was violence and that raised concerns. There is a worry. But what happened yesterday is that for nearly 20 hours, people have been protesting, basically saying they're not going to go home till their call is met. So, is the government going to hear the calls of so many now, so many that have come to the streets peacefully calling for change? And that's to be seen.
OK, thank you for talking to us. Appreciate your time.
Thank
That's
you.
Bhavani Fonseka joining us from Colombo.